This is Live for Love TV. Live for Love TV. Yes, I am.
One step more. One step more. One step more. Until you reach your goals. One step more. Save them soul. One step more. One step more. How good it is to reach the
Live for Love TV. This is Live for Love TV. Live for Love TV.
Welcome back to Live for Love TV, the 13th day of the 6th month of the 21st year in the 21st century. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Today we're going to deal with that tricky subject of knife crime, especially here in the UK. Now, we know crime and violence against people happens everywhere in the world to different degrees, and especially in the community that most of us come from, or I come from, should I say. It happens a lot more in America, gun violence also in Jamaica and Trinidad and the Caribbean and South America and Central America. But here in the UK, knives are the order of the day. And it's a very emotional subject at the moment. You find people who are parents like me and grandparents like me, terrified for our young sons and our grandsons. And people have been talking to me and saying to me, I need to address the subject. But I didn't address the subject up to now because I know how emotional people get over the subject. And because they get so emotional, what normally happens is you get people talking and saying things that really are not, it's not helping the situation. It's very, and sometimes irrational. I heard someone the other day sent me a video of a brother talking about, well, if somebody touched my son, I'm not gonna accept that his dad wasn't there and da-da-da-da. Basically, he was saying he's going to go after the person. Now, everybody who has a son, and if they got themselves into, if somebody attacked them in any way, they will go to defend that son. There's no problem. But if the son is already, let's say passed away from violence, and we're going to come on YouTube or anything and say we're going to go after them, we're going to take the 1, 2, 3, 4 out, then we're really not giving a solution. We're just venting our own anger. I know how everybody feels when when you feel like that. I feel the same. But the truth is that just adds to more violence, just adds to 3 or 4 more youths being taken out by a daddy like me in order to vent my anger for what would have happened to somebody that I know. So that's not a solution. That can't be a solution to the situation we've got. Now, one of the real problems we have with the knife situation in the UK, I would say, is the lack of authenticity and honesty with the elders. Because I can go back to the 60s and the 70s, and we had a lot of people carrying knives then. Lots of us, I said us, carried knives for different reasons. Nobody wanted to be outnumbered. Not so much that somebody else had a knife, but if there were 6 or 7 or 8, especially in the days when the Teddy Boys were around and the skinheads and the football hooligans and people like that, you want to give yourself a fighting chance. So to pretend that knives weren't in our day and that we didn't carry them, again, is an disingenuous attitude that some of the elders give. In fact, I can go further. I and many of us grew up in the sound area, the sound system era. And in the sound system era, especially the big sounds, you would never see a big sound that didn't have a crew of knife men, a crew of machete men that walk with them. Every big sound, I don't care who you are, every big sound had their backative. And sometimes the whole speaker box full of machete and knife and them things. And I'm talking it because a lot of you don't want to talk it. A lot of you are trying to go on as if the youths have brought something to the table that wasn't there before. They haven't. The fact that they are on the streets in broad daylight doing these things to one another, that may be new to us, but it's not new when it comes to knife and knife violence. I mean, I can even go on YouTube. You can find the man who claims he's the biggest sound in the UK and he controls sound system. He might have done, he might have championed sound. He claims his selector cut him with a knife, chop him with a knife. And one of his other selectors claimed that he tried to chop him with a knife. So this thing has been going on for a long time. I know a club in Dawson that I went to back in this late 70s, 80s, actually, the 80s, early 80s. And we got raided one night And that was the first time I'd seen so many weapons on the floor. When the police rammed the door and came in there, you just heard the clinks and the clinks and the clinks, and you had to jump around so you weren't standing next to something that the police would say that was yours. And when I saw some of the things that were on the ground that day, well, I didn't take any check after that. I knew what was going on. So the knife in the UK, the knife violence, the machete and, chopper and them things that have been going on for as long as I've been alive. And I said some of our fathers and grandfathers came off the boat with their cutthroat razor. They didn't take any checks from them teddy boys. So that was the way it was. And that is somehow part of, maybe I wouldn't say our culture, but part of man's behavior. So what we're talking about here, why are we addressing the youths about them carrying knives? People carry knives sometimes as protection. Sometimes they carry knives, obviously, to go out and hurt people. And some people carry them just to balance the score, because they know that they may be walking alone and they know that there are people out there with knives or numbers who are going to take them out. There's no way when we walked down the street back in 1980s that if someone jumped out of a car, 10 strong, or a van, should I say, 9, 10 strong, we had what we had, and we did what we had to do. So don't put it all on the young people as if it's a brand new thing happening in the UK. One of the things that has definitely happened that is new is social media. We get to see these things. I grew up in Northwest London. If something happened in East London or Stoke Newington, knife violence, I didn't hear about it unless you were in the club that night. If it happened in the estate or anywhere down the road, we never heard about it. And if it happened in Harlesden, they wouldn't hear about it. And if it happened in Brixton, chances are nobody else would have heard about it. But now, if it happens in Birmingham, you know about it within a minute or 2 minutes of it happening. You even get a video shot of some of these things happening. So, of course, it's going to seem a lot more and a lot more in your face than it was in my day. I'm not denying that there's more violence out there, but everything grows. You can't put a seed in the ground and expect it not to grow. This is why Live for Love talks about having good thoughts, because we want your good thoughts to grow. If you have bad thoughts, they're going to grow too. So those people who are out there with bad-minded intention, they're growing, they're getting stronger, they're getting bigger. Of course, they're going to get bigger. Everything grows. Nothing can stay the same as it was yesterday. And when we had tunes back in the 70s about Fist to Fist, Rubber Dub, Diaz Done, remember them tune there? Yeah, that's what it meant. It meant that no more fighting, we're going to war. So this happened long before these young people that you're seeing on the streets right now were even born or even thought of. So we have to address it as it is. It's in our culture. It's been in our culture for a long time to carry knives, to deal with knives. We carry machetes in Africa just like that. We don't carry machetes to hurt anybody, but we have them. And so what's happening now is the hate that's grown amongst a lot of our young people, like it is in America, like it is in the Caribbean, is spilling out onto the streets, and it's our children and our grandchildren. And yes, we have to address it, but we're not going to address it by being not authentic, by not telling them the truth, by trying to make it seem like they've all of a sudden done something that wasn't happening before. We used to go to parties. We went to blues dance and club. Knives were there aplenty, and everybody knows this. The only difference was you never used to get gangs against one person, like was what we see now. We only saw that from the footballers. We only saw that from the skinheads. We only saw that from the Teddy Boys back in the 50s when they first started. They'd get 20 people onto one. When I was growing up, it was never like that. That's where the difference is. Now you see 7 guys chasing one youth and knifing him to death and killing him. This is something that has changed, that I would say didn't happen in the days we grew up. And it's cowardice. It was cowardice when the Teddy Boys did it. It was cowardice when the skinheads did it. It was cowardice when the football hooligans do it. And it's cowardice now that the youths are doing it. I don't know how 7 people can be chasing down one person and eventually taking that person's life. And those 7 people think that they're men or young men or that anyone should respect them. They're cowards. They're always going to be cowards. That's how cowards operate. They've always operated like this, and they'll always operate like that. And that's why I said before in the video where it talked about the black wall of silence, that we have to call them out. If we're even in our family, if we know someone in our family is behaving like this, and out on the street doing. Don't make him tell you, say, my road, man. Call him out. If you don't want to name him, put him to one side. Tell him straight, you don't come to me, you don't talk to me, and we don't reason. You're out there, what you're out there doing, I don't want nothing to do with you in any shape or form. Don't be yes, uncle, yes. When it comes to yes, uncle, yes, you're not to me. I don't deal with people like that. That's cowardice. What we're seeing here is cowardice. And when the real, as Bob Marley said, revolution happens, we're going to see how many of them are actually there. Because these are normally the people that go hiding underneath their mummy's bed when it gets even really rough, and there are no rules. What they like to do, a lot of these young guys nowadays, they like to be around the everyday man and create havoc, running through people, creating havoc, knowing that those people are not used to violence. Those people haven't grown up in violence. Those people don't understand violence. But when violence is everywhere, when everybody is deciding that all chips are down, F everything, we're going to deal with what you're dealing with, you won't see these people. These are the very people you will not see again in the struggle. We know that they are not real men. We know that they're not real warriors, and we know they're not real soldiers. We know that. As I said to you before, they chasing down one youth, 10 of them surrounding him and attacking him like wild dogs. What kind of a man does that? I don't care who you are. What kind of a man would behave like that? That's not what men do. Men don't do that. So when you see young people, and if big men are doing it, they're not men to me. If big in age, they're not men to me. They're cowards. So I'm calling it out from a different angle. I want people to tell their young people, yes, how it was. Yes, we understand that some of you are going to carry weapons, and some of you may be even justified in carrying weapons. I'm not out there to say to youths, don't you ever carry any weapon. What happens if he doesn't carry a weapon and somehow that's the reason he gets killed? I can't tell a youth that. You have to educate people so they're in a position of consciousness, so that even if they have a weapon, the man standing right next to them, who is their friend, would never know they had a weapon. That's how we grew. I walked with people, I don't know if they were carrying a weapon. Never saw them use one, and I wouldn't swear they didn't have one. And I'm sure if I was carrying something, they wouldn't know unless I would have had to use it. Because we don't flash these things. These are not for joke. This is not a game with people's lives. But if you have to have what you have to have, as I said already, when it comes to protection of yourself as a man, as a human being, it's the same as it was in my time. It's better it be him than it be you. That's the reason why a lot of these things happen. But we have to accept with it as elders that we can't be telling these youths or telling people that if you do this to anybody in my family, we're coming for you, because we're just adding to the same thing again. We're adding to that same characteristic of what's out there. We're not teaching anybody anything. And we need to teach some of these young people what's going on, what's happening, and how we got to where we are in this struggle when it comes to aggression and violence. As I said, it's knife violence here, it's gun violence in other places in the world, but the root of it, the genesis of it is the same. It's the same. I've lived in countries where Black people are plenty and nobody draws a knife. You don't see any of that kind of violence. You don't see people drawing guns to attack one another for anything. You may see someone get robbed. You may hear of someone getting robbed by gunpoint, but that's about all. Never in a level of anger or violence you see those things in the places I've lived in. And it tells us a lot about the culture in which we live. This is why I was saying to you earlier, it's not the youths that have brought the violence about in this particular place in the UK. The violence was here before our parents stepped off the boat. This place was a violent place. This place was a knife violent place, a gang violent place. What's happened is we've come into it and we've adopted it, and we've taken it to a different level. But this place has always been like that. Long before, even with the football hooligans and everything you can think of back in the day, there was always violence. There were places in London where you go there at a certain time of night when the pub empty. You're lucky if you're gonna come back with your life just because of you look like me. That was always there. Now those areas are dangerous, and they're not dangerous by the same people who were making them dangerous before, but they're just as dangerous. People get knifed there just like they got knifed back in the day. It's just that it's a different demographic, different set of people doing it. As you would say, it's the same type of people doing it to the same kind of people. That's what people seem to be angry about. And I don't have a problem with people being angry about, but I'm calling it out from a different perspective. I know people are going to come back at me because everyone's got their view on what's happening. And I know people who wanted me to talk about knife violence thought I was just going to say, oh, you know, we shouldn't carry knives and they shouldn't this and the youth shouldn't that. And that's not realistic. That's not realistic. They feel fear. If they feel threatened, if they feel that's the only way they can get from point A to point B, unless you're going to walk with them and protect them, it's not easy for you to just say to them, this is how they should move. I know they got stab-proof vests that are selling on Amazon right now. And I know a lot of youths are wearing them. I never grew up with anything like that. I know maybe they didn't exist, but we never had to wear them. I know people who are not into violence. They're wearing stab-proof vests. Can you imagine that? Our youths, our grandchildren are having to buy stab-proof vests to get out of these inner city areas and around these inner city areas that we're in. It's frightening when you think about it, and it's very sad. So I'm going to, as usual, as I always say, wait to hear your comments. I'll talk to anybody about this who wants to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it from a real perspective, from a street perspective, and people who've been through certain things back and forth, not people who are sitting in their head and, you know, listen to BBC, ITV and Channel 4, whatever stations are out there, telling you how it is out there. These people don't know what's going on out there. They never have. They don't care what's going on out there. For us who has been out here from day one, lived through it, remember the days when certain people would be called, yeah, man, him a good knife, man, him a top knife, man, him is a real, you know, we heard all of this. We grew with it. So it's not a new thing. You understand? It's not a new thing. As I said, it's the way things are being carried out now that it becomes a new thing. So I'll see you again soon. Keep the channel locked. Keep your finger on the pulse and Live for Love TV. We'll never shy away from the hard subjects. Take care.
People, one step more.